What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Scoop. I'm Suraj Kadali, and today I'm going to be doing an NFL first round mock draft. So, as we get closer to April, it starts to become more and more apparent which teams will be drafting at the top of the draft and which teams will be drafting at the bottom. So, these storylines emerge, it will be interesting to see which of the teams picking first will choose from these crop of players, which is starting to get very, very interesting. We have a lot of talented players at the top of the draft, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So with that out of the way, let's get into the mock draft. So starting off, we have the Detroit Lions, and they have a very interesting choice. They have to choose between what I would assume would be two very, very talented edge rushers. And I've been seeing a lot of mock drafts recently go for Aiden Hutchinson, the hometown kid out of Michigan. I am actually going to go for Kayvon Thibodeaux from Oregon. And I think obviously it makes sense why a lot of people would go for Aiden Hutchinson. But personally, I think Thibodeaux right now is the better, more safer option because although Thibodeaux obviously didn't put up the same numbers that Hutchinson has put up, he's been incredible this year. Thibodeaux is obviously has struggled with a lot of injuries this year, minor injuries, and really hasn't been able to get on the field as much as Hutchinson has. So if Thibodeaux was able to stay healthy, I think he could have almost maybe even like matched Hutchinson's production and keep himself in the driver's seat for the number one overall pick. He's got all the physical tools. He had production in his previous years, and I think even though Hutchinson has been as incredible as he's been, I still think Thibodeaux does deserve to be at the top spot. Now going on second pick, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they have a bit of a tougher pick. I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson, though, because I see a lot of people for Jacksonville. They do need a tackle, and there are a couple great ones to choose from, Iquan McQuanu and Evan Neal. But I think when you have a player as talented as Hutchinson, even this high on the draft, you got to take him because I think those are one of the picks that you can regret for the rest of your career as a GM. I think Hutchinson is a kind of a game changer. I think he'll fit perfectly alongside Josh Allen in a 4-3 defense. And Jacksonville they would definitely love to go for tackle here, but I think with a player like Hutchinson on the board, you just can't refuse to take him. And now you have the third pick. You have the Houston Texans. This is where people are starting to say maybe a quarterback here. You got options: Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, who knows, maybe even Howell or Ritter. But I still think right now with this quarterback class, it's a bit weak. And I think at this point, when your team is bad as Houston, you got to go for best player available. And I think right now at the moment that is Kyle Hamilton. Obviously, taking a safety at third overall is a very risky choice, but Kyle Hamilton, he's one of a kind. He's 6'4", very rangy. He's a hard hitting safety. I saw one where they said he's kind of like a bigger version of Ed Reed, which is if he can be even half the player that Ed Reed is, that is a potential franchise cornerstone for Houston. So I think with Kyle Hamilton available at 3, I think you've got to go with them here, especially considering if you do take a quarterback, one, it's not like you're passing up a generational talent. Two, you're just taking a quarterback. It's not really going to make your team much better this season. Why not build your team around what will be a good quarterback in the future and then take your quarterback in the future? So I think right now, Houston just has to focus on getting as many of the best player available in the draft because they do have a lot of positions of need. So that's why I have Kyle Hamilton. Now going on to the fourth pick, you have the New York Jets, and this is my favorite team. I think at the moment, one of our most pressing needs is cornerback, and I think Derek Stingley has to be the pick. Like Thibodeaux, he has struggled with injuries, but in his freshman year, he was phenomenal. And the rest of his like seasons, he's like been kind of on the field, off the field, but I still think he is honestly too talented to pass up here. And I think obviously the Jets are I feel like undermanned in the secondary, especially at cornerback. Obviously you have Bryce Hall, but other than that, there aren't a lot of options to choose from. And when you have a player like Stingley, who I think easily would have been the cornerback number one in the past few draft classes, I think you've got to take him here. And now from one New York team to the other, you have the New York Giants, who will be picking back to back. And I think I will go with the first one. I think the Giants are getting an absolute steal here. Evan Neal from Alabama. He is a big man. He can pass protect, run protect. He is a beast in the trenches. And I think the Giants, they do have Andrew Thomas. I think they will hang on to him, but they do still need a replacement for Nate Soldier. And I think that offensive line has still been one of the worst in the NFL, and it has been for the past few years. And I think Evan Neal is just such a slam dunk pick that I can't see really the Giants with anyone else. I think a lot of people do have, including the Draft Network, they do have Ika McQuan, who is the number one tackle in this class. I think, given what I've watched of Evan Neal, he just seems like kind of that safe presence that will protect either the left side or the right side. He will be great at it. I think Aquana wouldn't be a bad pick either, but it's a matter of preference. I think Neal is the best option for the Giants. And for their second pick, it's a tough option. Again, another team that maybe potentially could go quarterback, but I just, again, doesn't seem to make sense at this point, considering the fact that there aren't any really elite options in terms of signal callers. So I'm going to go with the edge, George Karlaftis from Purdue. And even though he's the edge 3 in this class, I think he would have been edge 1 in last year's class. He's a very, very good edge rusher. He'll play kind of that 3-4 next to current rookie Azeez Ojulari, who's been very solid, but they need kind of that opposite guy. They've got the interior sort of sorted out. They've got their front 3 and that 3-4 defense sorted out, but they do need kind of that 3-4 outside linebacker, that edge rusher. They do have Ojulari, but I think they could use a bit more. And I think Karlaftis is, again, one of those instances where I think he's BPA, and I think the Giants should take him. And now back to the Jets, 4 straight New York picks. And with the Jets, I think, Joe Douglas, he definitely wants to beef up that offensive line. It has been kind of for as long as I can remember, it's just been a kind of a weak point of the Jets. It's gone a bit better with the picks of, Mekhi Becton has been on the field, but he did help last year, and Elijah Vera Tucker's been very good this season. They still need a lot of help on that offensive line with Ikem Ekwonu on the board. I think he is a great value pick for number 7 overall. I think you could also go interior more, maybe even center with Tyler Linderbaum. But I think with Ikem Ekwonu available, I think he is a great opposite tackle to Mekhi Becton. And basically, you've got 3 or 5 guys on the offensive line sorted for the long-term future, given that they do stay healthy, which is a great thing for the New York Jets, who definitely need to protect their future quarterback, hopefully Zach Wilson. And now into the 8th pick, you have the Carolina Panthers. And this is where I'm going to go with the first quarterback, Matt Corral, who I believe is the quarterback 1 in this draft class. Now, this is another pick where I contemplated, again, quarterbacks aren't necessarily very good this class. I think the Panthers could maybe even wait another round and still get a solid quarterback. But Carolina, I think, are one of the few teams in this draft. And that's really the only teams I have drafted a quarterback, are the teams that are really desperate and need a quarterback short term, because Carolina, they don't really have many options. Cam Newton, he's just sad to say, but he seems like he's washed. DJ Walker, I don't think he's the answer in Carolina. And Sam Darnold, he had time to prove himself, but without Christian McCaffrey, he just falls apart. So I have to think that Carolina are definitely thinking quarterback is priority 1. We have stocked up on the defensive side of the ball. We have got weapons for whoever our quarterback will be. Why not take a flyer on Matt Corral, who is a solid quarterback? I don't think he's a top 10 talent at all, but I think, again, you're always going to overdraft quarterback because they are the most important position in football. So I think this would be a realistic, and I think it's not a bad pick for Carolina. And now going into the 9th pick of the Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to go with DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. And I know he's listed as an interior defensive lineman, but he can definitely play a lot of 5 technique, which is really what the Falcons need, because they already do have Grady Jarrett on the interior of the line. Obviously, they could use kind of a partner in Leal, but he also will, I think what I would think in Atlanta, he would primarily focus on the outside, like kind of as an edge outside linebacker role. And I think he would fit that very well. He's done pretty well at Texas A&M so far. And I think kind of with Atlanta, you're looking at a team that really just struggles in the trench, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They obviously cut Dante Fowler. That didn't work out. And they still have been really looking for an edge rusher. And I think DeMarvin Leal is kind of their best option at the moment. I think he's a top 10 talent. I think this would be a good value pick for the Falcons. And now you have the first of 3 first-round picks for the Philadelphia Eagles. They are in a great position. With their first pick, I'm going to have them take Andrew Booth from Clemson, the second corner in a very good corner class, in my opinion, in this draft class. And I think with Philadelphia, obviously they do have big play slate, but they really don't have many other options on the outside and the boundary corner position. They don't really have a lot of guys in contract. They don't really have a cornerback kind of opposite Slay that can make plays. And after losing Jalen Mills, they just seem to be a bit undermanned there. And I think Andrew Booth is a great talent. Again, one of the best cornerbacks in not only this class, but in recent classes. And I think he is kind of that guy for Philadelphia he's a top 10 talent. I think he fits. I think he'll fit the system well. And I think that is, again, it makes sense. It's just a make sense pick for Philadelphia. And with their second pick, I think Philadelphia now at this point also have to address the linebacker position. They don't really have, I wouldn't really say they have a lot there. And I think Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean could both be great options, but I'm going to go with Lloyd from Utah. In the Pac-12 championship game, you saw what he's about. He had a few tackles. He had that big pick 6. He's a really great player. And I think when you're Philadelphia, again, you have 3 picks. I think obviously there's for some reason they have quarterback as a need. It's definitely not. They have 2 solid quarterbacks, and whichever one they roll with, they'll be great in. But they need to there are definitely a lot of positions that they're undermanned in, like cornerback, like linebacker, like edge rusher, wide receiver. So I think the good thing about having these 3 picks is that they can really address a lot of these positions. Obviously, maybe reaching a little bit for Devin Lloyd, but I don't really see. I think the other options aren't doesn't make sense as much for Philadelphia given their needs. I think Lloyd is a kind of almost, I feel like, a plug and play option for Philadelphia. And now you have the Minnesota Vikings. They are another team that desperately needs cornerback. And I'm going to go with Ahmad Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati. And he has been one of the best coverage corners in the league in college football this season. He's just kind of locked down his half of the field almost every single game. Granted, he is playing against competition, which isn't the most elite level, but still, it's FBS football. It's always difficult, and he's just proved himself game after game. I can't wait to see his battle with Jameson Williams of Alabama, who also will be picked in this first round, spoiler alert. And that, I think so far, he's impressed me so much. I think he definitely I think he's definitely my cornerback 3 behind Andrew Booth, and arguably could be a top 2 cornerback. And for a team like Minnesota that really, other than aging Patrick Peterson and Cameron Dantzler, they don't really have much at cornerback. They definitely need a lot of help there, which secondary has been a weak point of their defense this season. I think Ahmad Gardner is kind of a guy who could step in and maybe immediately be that cornerback number 1 there. And now you have the 13th pick. You have the New Orleans Saints. Quarterback is an option. James Winston will be out of contract at the end of the season. They could go for a quarterback here, but that being said, I think New Orleans are going to re-sign James Winston, even though he is coming off a torn ACL, because they don't have much better options. I don't think they really want to take a chance on one of these guys in the draft, and they have a lot of other needs, most pressing them wide receiver. So I'm going to go with the wide receiver. It's a tough one. I'm going to go with Olave, though, from Ohio State. The reason why I'm going with Olave, I think he's kind of one of the smoothest route runners. He has great hands. He's kind of been that kind of consistent weapon for CJ Stroud this season. I think he's got that potential to really be a number 1 receiver. And if Michael Thomas plays again for the Saints, kind of that 1-2 Ohio State tandem, that will be, from the get-go, a huge relief for whoever the quarterback may be for New Orleans. But I think with the Saints here, you've got to go receiver, given that right now their receiver 1, I think Deontay Harris is injured too. So I think it's Lil Jordan Humphrey. I don't know. I mean, the Saints just don't have anything at receiver. I think they have to address that immediately. And I think Olave, taking the number 1 receiver in this class, Olave, is definitely a great start for that. Now you have the Raiders at 14. They're going to go with another good pick here. Jordan Davis from Georgia. He has been an absolute game wrecker in college football this season. You just cannot run the ball against him. He is a monster. He's at some points, I think even he was considered, maybe he could be in New York as like a Heisman finalist. Obviously, that's almost unheard of for interior defensive lineman. But I think he finds himself in a good position here, 14 at the Raiders. The Raiders do have 2 excellent edge rushers in Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby, but in terms of the interior, they aren't necessarily as strong in that department. So I think taking Jordan Davis here is a safety valve pick, a pick that will really work and basically make the Raiders immediately, in my opinion, they'll probably be a top half team in terms of run defense just with this pick, because he is that much of a game wrecker. I think this is kind of a simple, good pick for the Raiders. And now you go on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 15, another team that I feel like are desperate for a quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger, it's all but guaranteed this will be his last season in the NFL. So I think you've got to go quarterback here, unless maybe they try and trade for one. That'd be impressive, but I don't think it'll happen. I think they will go with the hometown kid, Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh, a Heisman finalist. He has had a great season. I don't know how well his game translates to the NFL. He's good in the pocket, but he scrambles a bit. I'll be honest, I haven't seen too much of him, but what I've seen of him, he seems to be a solid quarterback, but a quarterback that's, I don't know. I think his game play is a bit, it's good for the NFL, obviously the new NFL, but he does kind of get out of the pocket a bit early. And yeah, but I think with Pittsburgh, I still think you've got to take a quarterback here. And I think Pickett is better than the other options available, than Howell, than Ritter, than Willis, and Strong. And they've got to get someone who kind of starts very, very soon. I think Pickett kind of, maybe other than Sam Howell, gives them the best chance to win from the get-go. And I think with weapons there like Chase Claypool, like Deontay Johnson, like Freeman, like Najee Harris, I think he should be relatively fine in a quarterback-friendly setting. And now to the Denver Broncos, again, another team that needs a quarterback. It's clear Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock are not the answer there. They need a new quarterback. The wide receivers kind of really aren't happy really with kind of the quarterback play. They could trade for one. Obviously, last season we heard a little bit about maybe even Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson going to the Denver Broncos. But I'm going to assume that no trade happens. So I'm going to take a quarterback for the Broncos. Sam Howell from North Carolina isn't the most impressive guy, but again, he kind of can get the job done. He has had games where he just hasn't played very well, like his opener against Virginia Tech. He didn't play very well there. And I think a lot of people expected with Howell, North Carolina, be a potential dark horse college football playoff contender. And that didn't work out, but he did improve as the season ends. And again, in a weak quarterback class, I think he does emerge as the number 3 option, maybe barely ahead of Redair and Willis. But I think with the Broncos, again, your team, they need a quarterback right away. And I don't know if they're going to trade for a quarterback. So I think they've got to, if assuming that they still have Bridgewater and Locke, that's all they have. I think they've got to go with the quarterback here. And I think Howell is the best option. Now, the 17th pick, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think they're getting a steal here, Tyler Linderbaum. He's one of the best offensive linemen in this draft class. He is kind of the best possible replacement. They needed a replacement for Trey Hopkins to center, and Linderbaum is going to make Joe Burrow's life infinitely times better because he's going to kind of, not only is he a great pass protector, but he's kind of almost a quarterback at the line of scrimmage. He'll be great at deciphering almost coverages. He'll be basically, again, he'll just be kind of that safety valve for Burrow, and that almost that protection. He'll really improve protection, not only for in the interior, but I think interior, but he'll also improve it for the guys around him because he's kind of one of those centers that I feel like will make offensive linemen around him better. And I think, again, when you're Cincinnati, this should not even be a doubt. I can't see them really going with anyone else here when you have an offensive lineman as good as Linderbaum. I think could have gone really as early as 7 here, the Jets, because they do need offensive linemen too. The reason why I think he falls a bit is because of the fact that a lot of teams here have needs. Like obviously Panthers need a quarterback, Steelers need a quarterback, Broncos need a quarterback. Other teams have other needs, but I think still Linderbaum at 17, it's an absolute steal. I think Cincinnati they'll be running up to the podium with this pick. Now you have the 18th pick, the Cleveland Browns. They need a receiver. They just do not have enough receiving threats, especially with Odell Beckham Jr. being released. They have Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's a solid deep threat, but they don't really have that X receiver. And I think Garrett Wilson of Ohio State kind of gives them the best opportunity. He's formulated a great 1-2 punch with Olave. And I think, again, with Cleveland, I think he'll step in and immediately be that opposite receiver to Jarvis Landry. I think Baker Mayfield I think it'll be Baker Mayfield, but you never know, obviously, considering he has been under a lot of scrutiny in Cleveland this season. I think he will, whoever the quarterback is there, he'll love Garrett Wilson. He'll be a great option. I can't really see this pick going wrong for the Browns. I think they've kind of got most of their other positions set. They got a solid offensive line, solid running backs. They've got a solid defense, solid front four with Clowney and Garrett. And I think with one of the few positions in question being at wide receiver, I think Garrett Wilson seems to be almost a slam dunk pick here. And now you have the 19th pick. You have the Washington football team. They are getting, again, another steal, Charles Cross from Mississippi State. Obviously, they did draft a lineman last year, Sam Cosmi out of Texas, but that really hasn't worked out too well yet for the Washington football team. So I think Charles Cross kind of provides, again, a lot of coverage for, again, whoever the quarterback will be in Washington next season. Another team that's there's a bit of uncertainty there. But I think one thing that will be certain is that Charles Cross should definitely be a much more stable option at offensive line. Something that really Washington have needed to kind of invest in the previous few seasons, given that their quarterbacks have kind of been under a lot of pressure with kind of poor blindside protection and poor protection on the right tackle as well. So I think Charles Cross does kind of give them a bit more protection and gives them a bit more time. Now you have the 20th pick, the Buffalo Bills. They need interior help. They have Josh Allen is just really struggling. You saw in the Bucks game. You saw basically you've been watching the Bills. You've been seeing it almost every game. They just do not have good enough protection on the interior side of the ball. Not only do they not get good enough pass protection, they aren't able to run the ball. I think one of the best options here is Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. He's a great pass blocker, a even better run blocker. And I think if Buffalo, they think they're starting to realize that their window is they're about to hit their prime window for a Super Bowl run. They need to be able to run the ball in the playoffs. They need to have good protection in the playoffs. I think Kenyon Green is a guy that will be almost a plug and play option for the Bills. And I think he will be a key part and maybe almost helping Buffalo establish the run with whoever the running backs will be. Maybe Singletary will still be there, maybe Moss. I'm not sure. But I think they definitely need a lot of investment on the interior side, interior offensive line. I think Kenyon Green is, again, one of those fits that just makes sense. The Eagles with their third pick. I love this pick here. David Ojabo, the other edge rusher from Michigan, will go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, with Brandon Graham tearing his Achilles, edge rusher is another position really where the Eagles are a bit lacking there. I think Ojabo has been kind of, not necessarily quietly, but he's obviously in Hutchinson's shadows because he's been so good. But Ojabo, I think he's made himself into a top 20 prospect as well. And I think Philadelphia, with their third pick taking Ojabo, they've just filled three crucial needs: cornerback, linebacker, and edge, all on the defense side of the ball. I think all three of these guys could have an immediate impact on this Philadelphia defense. I'd say they're all top two in their positions. Oh, not Ojabo, sorry. But they're all top 20 prospects. And they're all kind of guys that I feel like could be plug and play options. Booth is an amazing cornerback. Lloyd is the number one linebacker in this class. And Ojabo is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up maybe having the best edge rusher here, because you never know out with some of these guys. I think we've seen it in previous years where kind of the guy that we don't expect to be the best edge rusher in the class becomes the best edge rusher in this class. Like in this year's edge rusher class, we saw Odafe Owa from the start of the year. I don't think anyone some people expect him to be more of a long-term option, but he kind of emerged that plug and play immediately edge rusher threat for the Baltimore Ravens. And I think Ojabo could potentially be the same kind of guy, even though he is, again, down the pecking order, the fourth best edge rusher technically in this class, but he could easily rise the ranks. This is a very good edge rusher class, and I think Ojabo is a great option for Philadelphia. And now you have the Miami Dolphins at 22. They need offensive line help. I think it's been one of the few things that really has kind of hampered their offense that really started to get going in recent weeks. They've got obviously a great receiver, Jalen Waddle, great tight end, Mike Gesicki. I'd say right now at the moment, a solid quarterback into a Tagovailoa, but they do need pass protection. And I think in terms of offensive lineman, the best option there is Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa, an absolute mammoth of a man. I think he is, 6'7". That is incredible. And I think the Liam Eichenberg experiment really hasn't worked out. Jesse Davis hasn't really been good on the other side. And Miami just need a lot better pass protection that they're giving for Tua, even though he is getting the ball out ridiculously fast. They do need a lot of help on that offensive line. I think at the moment, Trevor Penning is, I'd say, head and shoulders the best offensive lineman left. Obviously, they would have maybe wanted to get a better option, like maybe a Charles Cross, maybe who knows, maybe an Aquanu, but that's where they were drafting earlier. But now at this point, they do have to sort of settle for Trevor Penning, but I don't think it's like that bad of an option. And I think with Miami, you still got to keep investing in that offensive line, especially considering how poor it's been. Now, I'm sorry, I actually made a mistake. I said that Miami should be drafting up here earlier. This is not their pick. This is the San Francisco 49ers pick. So I apologize for that. But anyway, let's get into the next pick. You have the Los Angeles Chargers. I would say potentially interior defensive line, because they do need to help the run. They do need to stop the run, which they haven't been able to do. But that being said, I don't think there are any great options in terms of value for a first-round pick. So I will go with an edge rusher here. I'm going to go with Drake Jackson from USC. Obviously, he's ranked as the 48th best prospect, but he has been a great piece from USC this season. I think he slightly edges above Trayvon Walker from Georgia. I think, again, Los Angeles are really looking for that opposite edge rusher to Joey Bosa ever since Melvin Ingram left last season. And I think Drake Jackson kind of is that guy that I feel like, again, there's a lot of good edge rushers in the class. Drake Jackson is the number 5 edge rusher in this class, according to me. But he's number 5 edge rusher in this class, but he could easily be number 2 last year. And I think Drake Jackson is one of those guys that could be a potential, who knows, maybe even a plug and play option. I think he would be, considering the fact that, again, the Chargers are relatively weak at the edge rusher position. So I'm going to go Drake Jackson from USC for the Los Angeles Chargers. The Detroit Lions are back on the board at 24. And again, I think this is another position where when you're the Lions that have so many kind of spots to fill, just go for BPA. And in my opinion, that is Kier Elam from Florida, a long, rangy cornerback. And I think he slightly edges above Roger McCreary from Auburn, another fellow SEC cornerback. And I think Elam is kind of almost the makeup pick for the Jeff Okudah pick, which seems to be, I know it's only been 3 years, but he already seems to be kind of going a lot downhill. Really hasn't done great in his tenure with the Lions as a cornerback. Obviously tore his Achilles, which is even worse. They do at least need a cornerback that could kind of play with him. And I think Kier Elam is a great option, a best player available. And with him on the board, he could easily be a top 15 pick. So I'm got to go with Elam here for the Lions. Now go on to the Baltimore Ravens at 25. Another team that really needs interior offensive lineman help. And I think this is where Darian Kennard from Kentucky goes off the board. He is, again, he's been a great fit for Kentucky. He's a great run blocker. And really, the Ravens have been struggling with offensive line. Obviously, they've dealt with a couple injuries. Obviously, they've also traded Orlando Brown. Ronnie Staley being out for the season again is really tough. But they haven't had enough interior help for Lamar. And I think they definitely need to sort that out. I think Darian Kennard, they could go with the tackle here, but again, I don't really love the tackles on the board at the moment. I think the interior is also a huge need for them. So I think I've got to go with Kennard for the Baltimore Ravens. And now you have the 26th pick. The Dallas Cowboys could go edge rusher here, but I almost feel like Micah Parsons has been that kind of linebacker edge hybrid that you could almost address another position. So I'm going to go with safety, the number 2 safety in this class, Jaquan Brisker from Penn State. Dallas has really kind of been, safety has been one of the few positions where I feel like they haven't been great in. They're not particularly as strong in. I think in terms of cornerbacks, they've got their options in Trayvon Diggs, and they drafted Kelvin Joseph. He hasn't seen the field much, but I still assume he will be a part of their future. They've got their linebackers with obviously Parsons, Van Der Esch, and that they're good there. Edge rushers, they got Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence, but I think safety is a position really where they could definitely use a lot of help. And it's kind of a 3-way battle for the number 2 safety position. Obviously, you could go with Brisker, but I also like Daxton Hill and Jordan Battle. But I kind of like Brisker the most here. I've watched a bit of Penn State. He's been very good, a very rangy safety, and I think Dallas definitely needs to address that position. So I'm going to go with Jaquan Brisker. And now you have the 27th pick. You have the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a tough one because I think they could definitely go linebacker. I think Nick Bolton has been such a great revelation really for the Chiefs that they could arguably go back to the offense. I think they will, because Kansas City have struggled to really get out of first gear on the offensive side of the ball. And I think one of the things is their offense is almost a bit too predictable because they've got a bunch of fast guys. They've got Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, and those are the main options. But they don't really have that kind of, I know you have Kelsey as a tight end, but he's kind of he slowed down a bit this season. He's also a tight end. I think Mahomes would really love that kind of a big option that also has a bit of speed. And I think that's what Treylon Burks is from Arkansas. He kind of provides a lot of options for the Chiefs. He can line up as an X receiver, a Z receiver. He also could line up in the slot, which that could be his role early on in his career. But overall, I think Kansas City really need that kind of big body third down weapon, something that they really haven't had the season with, again, Kelsey not having as great of a year, still a great year, but for his standards hasn't been as productive. And I think Treylon Burks just adds a whole nother dimension to this offense. And I think Kansas City, again, they've really struggled on the offensive side of the ball. Mahomes has really struggled. A lot of his receivers have struggled with drops. Why not go with the guy that could potentially be a great sure-handed weapon for Mahomes that could really produce from the get-go? And I think that's what Treylon Burks offers. Now you have the 20th pick. You have the Arizona Cardinals. It says quarterback as their main need, and I think they definitely could go quarterback. But I do like Byron Murphy, and I also like their, I believe, rookie cornerback Marco Wilson from Florida. He has been a a solid option for them. And I think they could kind of pass on cornerback for this year and go with Trayvon Walker from Georgia. I like Walker. I think he obviously has benefited from playing on an elite Georgia defensive line, but I think he will definitely kind of be a key contributor to the Arizona Cardinals, lining up with JJ Watt and Chandler Jones. He could kind of, yeah, I think Arizona could definitely, I can see them using a lot more blitz packages here, kind of using almost Hem, Watt, and Chandler Jones on at the same time. I think obviously they could maybe go for a position other than edge rusher. But I think Trayvon Walker is, again, a guy who's got first round talent, first round value. It fills a sort of need for Arizona, given that their edge rushers are currently aging. So I am going to go Trayvon Walker from Georgia. Now you have the 29th pick for the Tennessee Titans, and I think this is a slam dunk pick here. I think they got to go with Nakobe Dean from Georgia, another Georgia defensive player. They are stacked at this position, but I think they got to go with Nakobe Dean because, one, I think Tennessee have a glaring need at linebacker. Two, I think Nakobe Dean is already well past where he should have been picked. I think he's a top 25 player in this class. And I think three, Mike Vrabel, not only is he a defensive coach, but he used to be a linebacker as well. And I think it's killing them that Tennessee really haven't had that elite linebacker presence yet. I think Nakobe Dean is a guy that will come in there, be a leader, be a huge part of that Tennessee defense. I think he's got to go here he's got to go to Tennessee if he is available. Now you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 30. We're kind of almost coming to the end of it. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they don't really have any holes. They're the defending Super Bowl champions. They've been great, but one of the positions that I feel like they are a bit weakened, especially considered relative to their other positions, is cornerback. I think they've got some good young options. They got Sean Murphy, Bunting, Carlton Davis. They've got a good veteran presence of Richard Sherman, but I would still say they're relatively weak there. They haven't been their front seven is great. It's elite, arguably the best in football, but their back end of the defense hasn't been great. It's definitely holding them back a bit. And why not go for Roger McCreary, a guy who's improved in his PFF pass coverage grade every season? He's kind of the only game that really he struggled against was against John Mechie in Alabama, which I feel like is a bit excusable. He's been very good for Auburn all season long. He's played his way into the first round discussion, especially at 30. Some people will even have him as arguably a cornerback 2 or cornerback 3 in this class. And I think for Tampa Bay to get him at 30 here when they are in need of a cornerback at this point, I think it's a steal for them. And now you have the 31st pick. You have the New England Patriots. They are on a 7-game winning streak. They're playing amazingly well, but I think one of their needs is wide receiver, because even though they have made a lot of additions at receiver, they don't have that number one guy. I feel like for Mac Jones, they've got solid options: Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne. Obviously, they're 2 tight ends. Aguilar hasn't been great, but they have options. But they need that kind of that number one guy. Why not go with someone who Mac Jones has played with in college, Jameson Williams from Alabama, who's also had a breakout year, almost kind of eclipsing John Mechie before he tore his ACL. I think Mac Jones would kind of love to have him from college. He's been a great weapon for Alabama and Bryce Young this season. And I think Williams could, again, be one of those guys who goes in, is a great route runner, can kind of make things happen from the get-go and be a key contributor to a team that could be a championship contender for a long, long time. God help the rest of the AFC East. And now going on to the final pick, we have the Green Bay Packers. It's a tough pick. Obviously, they do say the Packers do need an edge rusher, but I think they've got solid options with Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith. They could go edge though still. Offensive tackle is a big position of need. They could go with Petit Freer, but I think there's still so many great receivers there. And remember, Devontae Adams will be out of contract this season. So the Packers really need to find a replacement, because it seems like I don't really even know if he's going to be coming back to Green Bay, especially if Aaron Rodgers is not there. So which his future is also up in the air. So why not go for another great receiver, Drake London, another big body option from USC. Some people even have him as the receiver 1 in this class. And I think he could be one of I don't know who the quarterback will be next season. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Jordan Love. He could be that number 1, number 2 option immediately from the get-go. He is a great player. Obviously, he did get injured this season, but I still think that won't impact him long-term. He's a young player. I think he should be fine. I think getting him at the back end, the last pick of the first round, is great value for the Green Packers. And I think that kind of, again, keeps that championship window slightly alive. Obviously, it depends on other aspects in the offseason, but I really think Drake London to the Packers is a good fit for them. But that is it for the video. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe. If you don't like my videos, remember we have 3 other hosts: Kian McDermott, Charlie Nidell, and Dylan Challam. They all post other videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, we do this almost daily, so make sure to subscribe. And that is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching.